Jimmy Floyd Hasselbaink, thank you very much for joining us for a special edition of the Transfer Talk podcast. This is when you'll be able to reveal to us, when you were a footballer, all those interviews we used to do with you when you couldn't tell us anything. This is when you tell us all the secrets, who you could have joined, who you almost joined, who you wanted to join, and who you regret joining, maybe. Welcome to the Transfer Talk podcast anyway. Let's start with Boa Vista. The summer of 1997, you're 25 years old. Cast your mind back, all the way back to then. Leeds United come in for you.
Yeah.
How did you find out about that? Was it a surprise?
I knew that George Graham, obviously we all knew back home in Holland who George Graham was, with his history at Arsenal, that he was following me because he went to Leeds and they needed a new striker. He had a few problems with Eboa, and Eboa left, and Thomas Brolin used to be there, and it didn't work out, so they were looking for a striker. At the end of the season, we went into the final, the league final, the cup, the domestic cup in Portugal, and I was on the bench, and I knew that George Graham was in the stadium. So it was difficult and anxious times, you know, because I wanted to play and I wanted to show what I got, because every player wants to come to the Premiership, you know. Back home in Holland, we get all the English football. We get that, you know, every Sunday, every Saturday. So we know about all the big clubs, and Leeds was a big club. So I thought my opportunity to go to Leeds was done. But luckily they followed me in a few matches, you know, and they were happy with what they saw. And then just after that final, the club came together with Boa Vista and got the transfer sum agreed, and then my agent went over to England and got it all done.
I want to ask you about your relationship and playing under George Graham in a moment, but Leeds were in for you, as you mentioned. Was there anyone else that you were aware of that was in for you?
It might be, but I was not interested in nobody else. There was definitely nobody in England, but I just wanted to come to England. There were a few other Portuguese clubs, you know, Sporting was looking at me at the time and stuff, but as soon as we were speaking about Leeds and the Premiership, you know, the rest is really not important.
So tell us about George Graham. What was he like as a manager? What was he like to play under? What was your relationship like with him?
Well, my relationship was very tough with him in the beginning.
How do you mean tough?
Because he's very no-nonsense. George Graham was a totally different manager as when he was a player. They called him the stroller when he used to play. He was totally different as a manager. He was so tough and didn't take any nonsense, and this is what you had to do, and this is what you need to do for the team. Yes, you are a striker, but you need to work, you know, and if you don't work, you're not gonna come and sit next to me, and if you don't do that right, then you'll be in the stands. And you know, there were quite a lot of, not disrespectful chats, but quite a lot of hard words from him to me, and he was tough, and it was the best thing for me, especially looking back. It was the best thing for me. I came from Portugal. The football was a lot tougher here than in Portugal. I was too much on the floor. He put me on a weight program in the gym. I needed to get more muscle, all those kind of things, you know. He made me tactically a lot better. Even when I scored in a match 1 or 2 goals and we won, he would say, well done, but it's gone, it's the next match, you know. He would not dwell on if you would have done well. He would always judge you on the last match. He would take no prisoners. George Graham is a single-minded person, and that's why he's been always so successful. And it is his way, and he believes in his way, and we were all on board. We were all on board, and that's why we were so successful. We got the first season, I think we got 4th, and we got in Europe, and the second season we got 3rd. So he left halfway through in the second season.
Yeah, he went to Tottenham.
He went to Tottenham.
What
yeah.
did you think when he left?
Well, it was a pity for me. you know, because I really liked working with him, and I established myself as a Premiership player. You know, the second year as well, I became top scorer in the Premiership, and he was a big part of that. He made me even more single-minded. He always tried to compare me with Ian Wright. And Ian Wright just scored tons and tons of goals for him. And he would always say, Ian Wright this, Ian Wright that. You know, so it just made me even more hungry when he was on my back.
So from a no-nonsense George Graham, you then play under David O'Leary.
Yeah.
Was it chalk and cheese, or did they have similarities? What was your relationship like with him?
I think David was totally different. It's always difficult for an assistant to become manager when the manager has left.
Is the assistant like the player's friend sometimes, and then? Not the player's friend, but you would go quicker to an assistant and talk about certain things, and a good assistant is somebody who keeps everybody together and stuff, you know. But now all of a sudden he's the boss. I don't think that I was David's cup of tea, you know. Why not?
I don't know. You would have to ask him the way that things went. I was playing, don't get me wrong, and I did well, but I think he didn't see me in his long-term future at the club. We were in contract talks, and it was not like he did his best to keep me. The things that went around it when I left, I think he could have prevented all those things, but it wasn't. So I left with a bitter taste in my mouth.
That was the summer of '99. Atletico Madrid come calling.
Yeah.
Just from what you've said, did it become an easier decision because of your relationship with him to leave Leeds United?
Yeah, it did. I definitely think that if George Graham would have stayed, that he would have never let me go. But David O'Leary had different plans, you know, and that's the thing, you know. Everybody sees football in a different way, and he saw it in a different way. His vision was different, with not me in it. The only thing is that I left really with a lot of negativity, and I think it could have been a lot better. It should have been a lot better.
What was your parting shot with each other? Did you shake hands and move on, or?
Always shake hands.
Right.
Always shake hands.
So Atletico Madrid come in.
Yeah.
But you've established yourself in the Premier League as a great goal scorer. There must have been English clubs who were interested.
Yeah.
So this is the
here we go.
This is the moment, Jimmy, when you tell us that you could have joined.
I could have joined Chelsea.
At that time, you could have
At
joined
that time,
Chelsea.
I could have joined Chelsea. Well, Chelsea was they wanted to talk, and Leeds did not want to sell me to an English club, or David O'Leary did not want to sell me to an English club. He didn't want to keep me, but he didn't want to sell me to an English club. So I said at the time, you don't want to keep me, but you also, so what are you afraid of? If you don't think that I'm going to do the business for you here, then surely that is good. If you give me to, or if you sell me to one of the, you know, other English clubs, I'm not going to do the business, am I? So you don't have to be worried about that.
It sounds like you wanted to go to Chelsea as opposed to Atletico.
Yeah. That was my first choice.
Can you tell us how far it went, though? Was it just
didn't
club
go
to
far
club
at all.
talks? Did you get to speak to anyone?
It didn't go far at all. Leeds didn't want to. They didn't want to negotiate with Chelsea. So they said no. So then Atletico Madrid came as well, and they put the offer in. The offer was accepted, and I had a decision to make. Or I stay 2 years at Leeds and don't play, or I go to Atletico Madrid, what is a magnificent club as well. It's a big club in Spain, and put my career back on track.
Going from a Premier League club to a club abroad is one thing. Had it been Leeds to Chelsea, there's chances are it would have been a higher transfer fee. Does that make it even more baffling that Leeds United was so firm in their stance that they didn't want to sell you to another Premier League club? Because they probably could have got more money for you.
Well, that's a possibility. It's a possibility, but I think David wanted to cover himself. You know, if Jimmy stays in England and he does well with another club, and the striker that I bring in doesn't hit it off straight away, you know, I'm going to get stick. You know, so in that way he's covering himself.
We'll touch on Chelsea, of course, in a moment, but from what you've just said about your departure from Leeds, whenever you came back and played against Leeds, the fans gave you a lot of stick, didn't they?
Yes.
Looking at what you've said now, do you think they fully understood the manner of your departure?
No.
Do you think they would have treated you like that had they known?
I think
because you wanted to stay by the sound of it.
Yeah, no, I wanted to stay. I wanted to stay. That was my first option. I wanted to stay, and we were in contract negotiations, and they were exceptionally difficult. Now, we all know when I left what happened there at the club and how money was thrown around and all that kind of stuff. I wasn't offered even close of certain, you know, offers that has gone on after. So that says enough, you know. And I was forced to ask for a transfer request so that they could tell the Leeds fans that I wanted to go.
Atletico Madrid, part one of your relationship with Claudio Ranieri.
Yes.
What was that like playing under him?
Claudio is the one that bought me, that got me to Atletico, and he came from Valencia, where he was very successful. It was all new for me, a different way. Claudio is totally different than George Graham, and totally different than Leary, and the football was totally different. The training schedule is totally different. The way they approach it is totally different, you know. For instance, pre-match, there's a bottle of wine on table. Yeah, you're laughing, but can you imagine if that was in England, you know, with the English players, you know?
You had a glass of wine before you played?
Some players will. I didn't, but some Spanish players do, you know, have a little glass of wine at pre-match. Yeah, but that's the culture, you know, and they can keep it to a little bit. It's all new for me, so you need to adapt. You're seeing new things, and you have to embrace the new culture.
That crazy season, you can't describe it any other way at Atletico. 33 goals, the club goes into administration, it gets relegated. How soon after, or was it during that season, were you hearing whispers about clubs being interested in you?
The last game of the season, we are going down, or we are down, and we are playing the Copa del Rey final against Espanyol. Pochettino is one of the centre halves, believe it or not. And we are playing them. And on the way to the game, I get a call from Gianluca Vialli.
No.
Yeah, in the coach, I get a call from Gianluca Vialli. Believe it or not.
Tell us about the conversation. And how long was it?
It was a really quick conversation. It was a really quick conversation. He said, "I know you have a game tomorrow. Just want to let you know we are very interesting. If you are, concentrate on your game. But after the game, tomorrow let's have a chat."
So, how did you play? Could you keep your mind on the game?
We lost. No. Look, put that aside. You know, you're playing a Copa del Rey. It's you know, one of the biggest games in the season, in your career, and you want to win. Forget about Chelsea at that time. You know, you want to win.
Can you tell us, aside of Chelsea, so Gianluca Vialli's made that call. Were there any other clubs who wanted you?
There were some clubs in Spain, Valencia, that were interested, a few others. But look, I missed out of Chelsea the year before. Thought that it would never happen again, and it luckily came back. When they were not allowed to speak the year before, they went for Chris Sutton straight away after. So I thought it was that. I thought, okay, Chris Sutton is going to sign a 4 or 5 year contract and he's going to play there for years. And it didn't work out between the two. And they came back. And look, at that time, you know, I didn't want to play in the second division in Spain, in the second tier. And you know, luckily a club of Chelsea stature came, and that was one of the smoothest deals, you know, that I've ever been involved with.
You talk about Gianluca Vialli calling you the day before the final, and you said we will talk the day after. Did that conversation happen, and what did he say to you then? And did that convince you, if you needed convincing, that Chelsea was the place?
Obviously that happened before the negotiations and stuff, before the two clubs met. Yeah, we had a good chat. We had a good chat. He said what he wanted and what the team missed, and what the team needed, where he sees me, how he wants us to play, and all that kind of stuff, you know. So we had a good half an hour, 45 minutes on the phone, and I felt good after that conversation, you know. Chelsea was at that time, you know, the club that did things a little bit different. They had the Italian stars, they had the flair a bit, you know, and they played really well football. So I wanted to come back to the Premiership, and I also really wanted to play for Chelsea.
But the man, Vialli, who tried so hard to get you and to convince you to come to Chelsea, within a matter of months of you arriving there, he's gone. Yes. I'm guessing then there's a bit of uncertainty in your mind then, because the man who's brought you in is now gone. But then the man who replaces him, was that a huge relief when Claudio Ranieri comes in?
Yeah. It obviously, look, I was devastated that Luca left, because he was the one that had faith in me and got me and brought me and was going to play. And then you always need to, you know, see who's going to come in, you know. Does he fancy you, yes or no? And luckily, Ranieri came in, who I already knew and who I had a good relationship with. And he came in and yeah, he knew my strength straight away. You know, he knew straight away, you know, Jim, I don't want you to play that much with your back to the goal and all that kind of stuff. I want you to see the goal and as much as possible, and I want you to have shots, you know, at the goal. So yeah, I was very happy that it was Ranieri that came in.
I mean, the coaching changes didn't seem to affect you. You won the Golden Boot in the Premier League that year. Just out of interest, where is that now? Do you have it pride of place somewhere?
It's in the house.
It's in the house,
yes,
on display. Is
on
that
display,
one of
yes.
your proudest possessions?
Look, when I came back to England, you're talking about pressure. That was the year that I really felt the pressure, because I've left England with all that trouble from Leeds. The press, your friends, they were on my back. They really were on my back, because I was called greedy and I was called all sorts of names, you know, when I left. And then when I came back, I had that all, you know, again being played on me, and can he do it? Is he going to do it? You know, is he worth 15 million quid? You know, there was only one player who somebody paid that amount of money for, and that was Alan Shearer at the time. So, you know, it was that was real pressure, you know, at the time. But yeah, luckily I could cope and take it in stride and play my football and had my blinkers on and came that year out and scored 23 goals.
If fast forward to January 2003, now there was a chance you could have gone back to Spain and La Liga, wasn't there?
Yeah.
Can you tell us what club, what happened there?
To Barcelona.
You almost joined Barcelona.
Yes.
How close was that?
Very close, very close. At the time, the club was significant in trouble with money, and they needed to sell a few players. And when Barcelona came in for me, they had ear to it. They wanted to listen, and there was a fee agreed. There was a fee agreed. Yeah. What happened? Louis van Gaal was at Barcelona. He wanted me there. He wanted competition for Patrick Kluivert. I think the transfer between the clubs was agreed on the Friday. We played Man United. Ranieri asked me, "Do you want to play?" Because he already knew that, and I wanted to play. I wanted to play the last game, you know, and then move on. I got kicked on my ankle by Phil Neville. Yeah, and I had to come off. I came off, my ankle was really swollen, but it wouldn't have stopped the deal. What happened? Valencia won against Barcelona, I think 3-1 or something at Barcelona. And the next morning, Van Gaal was sacked.
No.
Yeah, Van Gaal was sacked, and the deal was off.
What went through your mind then? You got a chance to play for Barcelona.
Yeah, look, I was at a magnificent club. I was loved, you know. I really had a good time. The club wanted to sell me because they needed to raise money. Obviously, Barcelona is a magnificent club, but the transition when it didn't go through was fairly easy. It was just not meant to be. You can look at it in two ways: that the deal didn't go through, yeah, but also Van Gaal wanted me, but his position was not really that strong, you know. So if they sack him against Valencia, or if they would have won against Valencia, and he would have lost 2 weeks after, I came as his signing, you know, what would happen, you know? So you can look at it in different ways, you know? So I always try to take the positive out of it.
Jimmy, then in the summer of 2003, everything changed at Chelsea. Enter Roman Abramovich. When that sale to Roman Abramovich went through, what were the players thinking? What were you thinking?
We actually didn't, well, I didn't even know. I thought, yeah, okay, we have a new owner, and that was it. It was when other players start coming in. That is
you
when...
say other players,
yeah.
Crespo, Mutu, Duff, Makaleli, Joe Cole.
Veron.
Many others.
Yeah.
Does that put uncertainty in your mind, or do you approach it with, right, I've got competition, now I'm going to perform?
No, Ranieri called me in, and Ida Johnson as well, separately. And he had the same chat with both of us, saying, look, I have to strengthen the squad. The owner is very ambitious. The new owner, I'm gonna try to get the best of the best. If you want to go, you can go. And I said, no, I don't want to go. I want to stay. You know. So he said, you're not going to be the number one anymore. And I just thought, well, let's see who you're going to bring in now. I fancy myself. So let's get it on.
How much did that first game in the Abramovich era, it was at Anfield if I remember correctly, and you scored the winning goal very, very late on. How much did that maybe convince Claudio Ranieri that actually Jimmy Floyd Hasselbaink is the number one striker here?
Well, look, when a manager brings in two big names and pay all that kind of money for them strikers, he has to play them. He has to justify it. You know, even though your striker that you have might be better. You know, it was for me to keep on digging in and keep on believing and be positive, and every time I'm being called up on, making sure that I do the business and give Ranieri a problem, you know, and that's what I did, and that's why I became again that year with either the number one striking partner, you know, for the team.
Then, the following summer, your time at Chelsea ended.
Yeah.
Now, how tough was that to leave? Was it your decision? Was the decision forced upon you?
The decision was forced upon me. Mourinho came in, and Drogba came in, and Kessman came in. My agent was called, and they said that I could go, and they would give me a free transfer. So, and they wanted me basically out of the door. I was not spoken to by Mourinho. Mourinho had not called me or whatever, and that was it.
What do you make of that?
It's how it is. It's football, isn't it? It's football. Peter Kenyon came in and he did all the business. He called my agent and he said, the time is up for Jimmy. So what do you do?
But surely, given the service you've given to that football club, how did that make you feel? Did you feel let down by them?
Yeah, very much so. Very much so. I would have loved to have a conversation with Mourinho, but it wasn't meant to be, and he had his plans, and you know, he wanted to bring in Kessman and Drogba, and I went off to Middlesbrough.
You say you went off to Middlesbrough. If they're offering you on a free transfer, it sounds like a bargain to a lot of football clubs. Who else was in for you?
Besiktas, AC Milan, but I wanted to stay in England.
Even ahead of AC
Look,
Milan?
if I would have gone to AC Milan, Shevchenko was there at the time. They always play with one striker, and they said as well, you're going to be behind Shevchenko. They had the Danish striker as well there, Thomason. Yeah, you're good. And I wanted to play football. I was 32. I wanted to play football. I wanted to play week in, week out football. You know, so yeah, it was not. They were not like, oh, we want you. You're going to be number one. They were more like, you're going to be the backup for Shevchenko, and I didn't want that.
Was the decision purely based, though, on not only playing football but staying in the Premier League and Borough and what Borough were doing? Because Borough were quite ambitious then as well, weren't they?
Yeah.
They were bringing in players. I can reel off a few: Reitziger, Viduka, Ray Parlour, Zenden. How much of that was an influence in your decision?
Oh, a big influence, because I was on holiday and I got a call from George Boateng, who I know from the Dutch national team. And
You should go on holiday more often.
Yeah, I'm going tomorrow. Maybe a club will call me to be a manager.
Job.
Here you go. No, but yeah, he called me. I was at the time in Dubai, and he called me. He said, would you fancy coming to us? And I needed to call you for Steve McLaren, and what are you thinking? And you know, and he then started talking about the Middlesbrough and the players and what he was thinking and how it is and life and stuff. And he said, you should come. You would really enjoy it. And then when I spoke to Steve McLaren, he said, well, I want to bring in two strikers. I want to play two strikers up front. I see you and Viduka, you know, and obviously Viduka had this Leeds background as well. And I always liked Viduka as a player. And yeah, I could see that work. And and it did work. We got at that year, we got the best position in the Premiership in Middlesbrough's history. We went into Europe as well, and the year after we got in the final of the UEFA Cup with a crazy cup run, what I will never ever forget. You know, it was just amazing, and had a really great time with a really nice team. You know, Mendieta, Bolo Sende, Yuko Akiok, Gareth Southgate, Schwarzer. You know, we had a hell of a team, you know, and it was a really good time.
When you see Middlesbrough fans now, if you come across them, do they always talk about that?
My reception at Middlesbrough is still amazing, still very, very good. No, Leeds now is good, is good. But at Middlesbrough, it's always been good, and yes, they're still talking. The older guard, they are still talking about those days, those matches. You know, because, you know, for that to the way that it happened, nobody will ever forget that. You know, the atmosphere and the drama. You know, it was the best television at the time.
Gareth Southgate was your captain back then. Did he show signs that he was going to be a Premier League manager? Did he show signs perhaps he could even become an England manager back then?
He always conducted himself in the right way. He was always thinking about the tactical side of the game. He was always, you know, involved. You know, so yeah, you could already see that he was going to have a future in the game, you know, on the other side.
He was the man, though, when he was manager, that released you.
Yeah, my contract was finished. I signed a 2-year contract was finished, and he became the manager, and I left. I was 34, and it was a normal good chat of we can't renew it. You know, we don't have the funds, and we still have got 2 other strikers on the book, and we want to go in a different direction. And I was 34, and I went to Charlton.
Yes, but you are 34, but you still feel like you can do a job in the Premier League, maybe somewhere else. But there was talk of Celtic straight after Middlesbrough.
Yeah.
Was that as close as you mentioned Barcelona was?
No, it wasn't that close. I think it was Gordon Strachan at the time, but it wasn't as close. There were a few chats, but it was never really materialized. What was a pity, you know, because it's a great club.
So why Charlton? How did that come about? And were there any other Premier League clubs?
No other Premier League clubs. I got a call from Ian Dowie. We had a good chat. Kerbishley had just left in January when Kerbishley was at Charlton. We had a chat as well.
That post-Kerbishley era, that was so tough for Charlton, wasn't it? And that season ended in relegation.
Yeah.
When you look back on your career, is that one of the most toughest ones to take, that one?
It was always going to be difficult for Charlton because Kerbishley had so much success and he was so influential there. You know, he was an icon, wasn't he, over there? There was a big hole to fill. And that was difficult at the time, and I ended up not playing that much. Ian Dowie left, Pardew came, and he wanted to go younger up front, and I didn't play that much.
And then the finale of your career, from Charlton, you go to Cardiff, and did Peter Ridsdale play a part in this?
Yeah, Peter did play a part. Obviously, time has gone by, and we made up after the Leeds, you know, and said sorry to each other and all that kind of stuff. And I met David Jones with Richdale in Cardiff and in a hotel, and we spoke, and yeah, I just wanted to play one more year. I didn't know that the championship was that tough, but there's a lot of matches, quick recoveries and stuff. But yeah, I really enjoyed it. You know, what a hell of a club, what a hell of a supporters. You know, Cardiff supporters, and very intense, very intense.
That must have been an amazing time though that year, because it was Hasselbaink and Fowler up front for Cardiff, wasn't it? What was he like to play with?
Oh, one of the best touches. You know, it's a pity that we came together so late in our careers, because he was quite knackered and I was quite knackered. You know, so going into channels and a lot of energy. You know, we didn't have. We had the brain, but we were not that mobile as we were previously. But his touch and his know-how and his left foot, yeah, very, very, very good.
And then the last game, Jimmy, of your professional career, I guess, was the FA Cup final. Didn't end as you'd wanted it to, of course, but was it perhaps a fitting end that you got to play in a showpiece like that as your final game?
Yeah, it was. It was a pity that we couldn't do a stunner, you know, against Portsmouth. But at the time, Portsmouth obviously had, you know, Sol Campbell and all them kind of stars, and
Kanu.
Yeah, and playing really well. But to finish your career, you know, in the cup final, FA Cup final, in Wembley, you know, as your last game, you know, is special.
This has been special. Jimmy
Yes.
Floyd Hasselbaink, thank you for your appearance on
problem.
Transfer Talk.
Yes, thank you.